Hello and welcome back. In this section, we are going to talk about what happens when an organization does not meet PCI DSS compliance or the regulation. What happens if you do not get certified by them? You have a choice that a company, if they do not want, they cannot get certified with PCI DSS and they can do kind of a transaction. So it is not a legal, I would say, a mandate, but then it is strongly advised by even the most of the regulators of different countries and also by the card schemes to follow the common standards or the international level payment standards like PCI DSS or EMVCO kind of things. So let us look at what happens if and when an organization does not adhere to PCI DSS. So as we have discussed, PCI DSS is not legal but mandatory by different card schemes. So when I say card scheme, it is like Visa, MasterCard, RuPay, Discover, MX and all. So if you do not adhere to that and if you kind of do certain things wrong, then you will be heavily fined and there will be penalties because as we discussed, PCI DSS takes care of the storage, processing of the payment and also collection of data. So if you're not collecting data and processing and storing it in a structured or in a secured manner, you may be penalized by the service provider. You may be penalized by the regulator once the customer, if there's a fraud which happens to the customer's account, what the customer will do is that they will complain against you, say in police or in kind of a consumer forum or with a regulator, and then the organization will get fined. So also the customers lose confidence that this organization is not stable, is not secure because whatever payment I have done, it is kind of leaked out everything to a different entity. So people lose confidence onto your ecosystem and then they will go to other merchants or go to other payment service providers who have a much stable kind of a system and much secured and which is like, has the international standards like PCI, DSS, EMV and all. And then again, once the customer lose confidence, your sales will go down, people will not trust you, will not refer your products. So again, sales will get reduced. And then cost of reissuing new payment card is very high, which means that if, for example, if there's a fraud which happens and the customer has kind of their details like debit card or credit card details have been compromised, what customer does is that they have to block the card and they have to ask for a reissue of a card. So where it happens that a customer might be charged either for a new card or if there's a different relationship of the customer with the bank, then they will not be charged, but then the banks will have to ultimately bear that cost. So there is a cost of not adhering to PCI DSS. Then there could be a data breach and fraud related losses that if not say accidentally even your own employees of an organization can do certain kind of frauds, can steal all the debit card and credit card details and can do fraudulent transactions, but ultimately not employees, the organization which is kind of accepting the payment will get penalized and will lose their face in front of the customers and also with the regulators. Also lead to the legal cost, settlement and judgment, which means that the regulator will say that you have to settle this much amount or they can penalize you with a very hefty amount. It could be $100 kind of a here and there on the digital payment, but the regulator might say that you have to pay say 10,000 USD as a compensation and also something you have to give back to the society or to a dedicated fund which will improve say the payments infrastructure. So whatever the regulator or the judge of that kind of an ecosystem decides, the organization has to deal with that. So there could be heavy legal cost. You have to kind of the organization has to hire a lawyer, and then in order to kind of deal with that, they have to pay a hefty amount to the lawyers as well. So it is much better to kind of comply with PCI DSS because it saves you, it saves customers, it's create a healthy ecosystem and the trustful ecosystem for the everyone whomsoever is participating into that payment ecosystem. Then what also happens is that there could be a termination of ability to accept payment cards, which means that if say the regulator says that say for next 6 months or they say now for next 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, this entity cannot accept digital payments by any payment card or credit cards. So those kind of sanction can also be put in by the regulator or by the central bank or by any payment service kind of authority or an association. So within an organization, if there is someone who is responsible like CIO, Chief Information Officer, or Chief Executive Officer, who are not kind of taking care of this digital payment, they might also lose their jobs because this is very critical. And as we have discussed in different courses about the GDPR and the data protection policies and the rules, it is like very hefty fine. I would say 4% of the global turnover is something that a company will have to pay if they are defaulting in UK or the EU's area, and where the this GDPR kind of a thing and this PSD2 and open banking kind of an ecosystem is established and is has become a mandate. So hence, people can also lose their jobs. The businesses can completely shut down, and nobody will, because and ultimately, if there's a final penalty, customers have lost the confidence, the sales has diminished. There are a lot of data breaches and fraud losses. Your employees are kind of doing a lot of frauds on the ecosystem. Again, the business will go out of kind of out of the fuel, and then ultimately it has to shut down. And then higher subsequent cost of compliance, which means that once say even $100 kind of a fraud has happened, now it's not like, it does not mean that you just have to cater to that $100 kind of issue. What happens that then what the regulator will start identifying is scanning all your processes, and you may end up kind of giving more penalties than only $100, because if there's a breach into one part of your ecosystem, which means that the other ecosystem or the other systems, hardware, software also corrupted, which because of which this kind of fraud happened. So once they kind of scan everything, the regulators will do an audit of all the parts related, like softwares, hardwares. I'm sure that they will be able to find out something more wrong into the ecosystem, and then the organization will have to kind of pay a higher fine, and they will have to pay more as a cost of compliance. So again, as we have discussed in our another course on RegTech, regulatory technology and supervisory technologies. So supervisory technology is being used by regulators or by the supervisors of an entity or of the say a central bank. So what they can do is that these things, it's not like that you have to report it or the organization has to report such frauds and breaches. If the RegTech and SupTech kind of things get implemented, the regulators will come to know immediately that there is a fraud which has happened, and if the customer has reported that fraud, then the organization has to bear a lot of kind of these losses which we have discussed in this section. So these are a few kind of legal issues and the business issues which an organization has to face if they are into the payment service business and they are not adhering to PCI DSS compliance. So it's much better to adhere to PCI DSS. As we have discussed, it creates a better ecosystem for everyone, like for regulators, for your own organization, for the employees, for the customers, and it creates a trust and I would say a smooth ecosystem for everyone. So that's all in this section. In the next section, let us look at what is the market size of IVR based digital payment and who are bigger and who are few bigger players into this IVR kind of a business. So see you in the next section. Till the time, take care and see you there. Thank you.